Hello and welcome back to another Player 2 review discussion. My name is Paul James. Today I'm joined by the fantastic Jess and Paul. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm very well. We're talking about God of War today, so it's a great topic. It's one of the best games of the last 4 to 5 years, as far as I'm personally concerned.
Oh
I don't know
yeah, no,
100% where you
100%.
stand. Oh, we're on the same page.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
And the reason we're having this conversation almost 4 years after the original release is because the PC release has just come out, or is coming out this week as of when people see this video or listen to this podcast. And we're going to talk about that a little bit because you were very fortunate in the sense that you have been able to play this PC version. I, for the sake of this conversation, went back and played the game on the PS5, or my PS4 version on the PS5, so got to enjoy that 60 frames perk. But you got the whole shabam. So
Did.
I'm keen to pick your brain a little bit about that, and then we'll
Yep.
reflect a little bit on the core game itself and how some of that holds up.
Yep.
But I guess
Sounds
first
good.
impressions playing the PC version, what was that like for you? You've got the memory from 2018 to draw upon a little bit.
Yeah.
What was it like going back to it and enjoying some of these new technical perks?
So I remember when I played it the first time, I played it on just the original PS4, not PS4 Pro or anything. No,
Yeah.
no kind of bells and whistles. And even back then, I remember being like, this game is beautiful. Like, this is a stunning game.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I feel like coming from that, I was like, can it really improve that much? Like, can it be that much better? And then you see just those little enhancements, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, it
So
turns
what were
out,
some of
yes.
those little ones that you saw then?
It's just the detail for me. Like,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
really just in the detail. Like the weird details in like the tree bark in that first scene where he's, chopping
Oh,
down the
yeah,
tree.
okay, right.
And really up close, even to like the texture of his skin and like the bandages that he's got wrapped around
Oh,
his
yeah.
wrists. Like it's just such I don't know, such just beautiful detail. Like it's performance wise, not that different. I think what I really noticed was just how like small the detail I guess could get once it had the kind of extra processing power from the first time that I played it.
Yeah, that jump from PS4 to a
Yeah.
potentially a high-end PC
Yeah,
can
yeah.
make a big difference. Yeah, I mean, for me, I tweeted this out, and I was able to do that thankfully because I was playing the console still,
Yeah.
not the PC version that you were embargoed with.
Yes.
Is the fact that I was completely taken. Like, I've not been a frame rate person whatsoever. Like, I've not cared. Like, okay, everyone makes a big fuss about 60 and 120 and how it's so much better
Yeah.
than 30. I'm like, I don't care. My game runs a treat at 30. I'm happy.
Yeah.
Playing the game in 60, even despite the fact that, close to 4 years old at this point, I could see that difference immediately in just in terms of how crisp it was and how fluid the movements were.
Yeah.
I've finally, I think, become a frame rate snob because of God of War.
Yeah. Same. Yeah. It's not something that, like, you and I are both console people. Usually it's not a huge deal, I think, for either of us. And
Even
I
down to
noticed it.
sometimes the sorts of games that we've played that have meant that it's
Yeah.
not necessarily been a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
God
yeah,
of War, I'd argue, probably wasn't a big deal for either of us the first time either. I certainly
No.
didn't notice it looked like a beautiful experience at 30
Yeah.
before.
yeah.
60 plus makes turns out actually a big difference. Like, I'm finally starting to understand why this is. I'm not going to go as far as say important, but why it can really enhance the experience further.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's important anyway, not necessarily for the frame rate or anything, but because the move to PC for the game means that it's going to be accessible to a lot more people now.
That too, yeah, that's
Um,
huge.
Partly in terms of, like people that just don't have PlayStation consoles, but also because in the move to PC, that means that they've added a bunch of like keyboard remapping and controls and stuff, which make the game just inherently more accessible to people. Like the little things that I noticed that they've added were like, like auto sprint buttons and,
Yeah, okay.
and things that can just like tiny touches that are going to make a really big deal for a really big difference. Sorry, for some people.
Yeah, that makes
Which
sense.
I think is cool.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and something I guess I hadn't necessarily considered going back to playing it with a controller still in hand on a PlayStation console. But you're 100% right. Some of those accessibility things will be huge. Even down to, you don't want to play on a PlayStation console and you've got an Xbox controller for your PC, because that tends to be the default for people playing with a controller on a PC. Then do it. I assume there's no problems with that. I don't know if that's
No.
how you played or whether you
It
used the
is.
PlayStation console. It is? Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so I played through it with an Xbox controller. on PC. It was perfect.
Dirty trade.
Bit weird. Yeah, I know. It felt wrong. Yeah, look, I should have just plugged in a PlayStation controller.
That's it. People were playing Halo with dual sensors just recently on PC, so I guess the walls are breaking down bit by bit.
They are. But yeah, no, I couldn't bring myself. I tried to play it with a keyboard and mouse, but I got 5 minutes in and I was like, this is too weird. I can't do it. I can't.
I couldn't imagine it, but that's because, as is often noted, I'm a bit of a hack with the mouse and keyboard, so
yeah, no, same.
Couldn't possibly imagine it. But yeah, I mean, it's fantastic, and you're right. Your other point there about just introducing the game to a whole new audience is huge as well. Now, I don't know what your personal belief is, but I feel like there's a hell of a lot of marketing to the whole idea and the timing of the release. I think not dissimilar to Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC last year, or
I think it was last year.
Whenever it was, anyway. Certainly being like, you like this? Do you want to buy a PS5 so you can play Forbidden West? I think we're seeing the same thing here, but regardless of that, if you can separate that in your mind that yes, there's a marketing component to it. It is still fantastic that all these people get to play a game that has been heralded for so long and tens of millions of people have enjoyed, but there's tens and tens and tens of millions of others that are on other platforms, including PC, that haven't had that opportunity and now finally can.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Big audience.
The game itself.
Yes. The game itself.
How does it hold up all these years on for you?
I mean, I think I felt much the same as I did the first time I played it. I mean, it's got a lot of pros, but I think the main one for me was always the story. It was for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I didn't play the original God of War games, any of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were 100% not something that appealed to me at all, because it was just this like big, violent, masculine energy, I guess. Yeah. And I think when this one came out and it just like absolutely turned that on its head and was very much like, no, this is not a good thing. Let's reflect on what that means and the kind of person that like turns you into, I guess. I think it's really cool. I still think the story is really cool and really clever, and I mean, Christopher Judge's acting is amazing. And yeah, I don't know. It's still hit the same, I think.
I did see on Twitter just in the last 24, 48 hours or something like that, someone sharing a clip from, I guess, the original release. It was an outtake that didn't make it. That was, so you know when, we can lean a little bit into spoilers here. Sorry, people, you've had 4 years at this point.
Yeah.
Even if you're playing it on PC, maybe just ignore this. Some of these little story beats that will hit. This one's innocent enough. There was that one point there where you've just arrived at the I won't name specific names if that makes it. The witch's house, and you've been sent to go and collect those flowers to help the injured boar or pig or whatever it is.
And
it's not in the actual final thing, but there was a little outtake there of Christopher Judge he's kind of as Kratos is walking out to go collect the flowers or whatever. Like, I'm a fucking god of war, and what am I doing? Like I can see why it didn't make the cut, because tonally it didn't fit, but it was interesting to see how at times they were still looking to inject that little bit, that 5% of old Kratos back in there. I could see it making sense. I understand why they didn't go with it. I think the Kratos they wanted to portray was one who has gone through this transformation completely and isn't still. There's not a little. I guess there was always these little things that were drawing him back, the blades and all those sorts of things. But from the way he spoke and the way he acted, they wanted to portray a Kratos who had matured. I don't know. Had gone through this full transformation, not still wrestling with that transformation, but it was funny to see nonetheless. One of the big things for me, and we discussed this going into it, and one of the main reasons why I was keen to go back and replay it, despite the fact that I didn't have the PC version, was the fact that my life circumstances have completely changed since I played in 2018. In April of 2018, we had our first On the Way, but I wasn't a dad yet. And playing it now, playing it in 2022, I've now, or 2021, 2022, I've now got 2 kids, and that's like a lot's kind of changed in that space. And so I was curious to see how things like Atreus' little asshole-ish turn would sit with me. Try and think about the way that Kratos was or wasn't doing things. And we obviously understand that he was a horrific person to begin with, and he's gone through a hell of a lot there. But how some of those sort of really resonated with me with a totally different perspective. Well, I'd like to think that I was a fairly decent person beforehand, but what having children does to someone, regardless of whether they're the mother, the father, or anything. And I've realised that for the most part, not a hell of a lot's changed.
Mm-hmm.
But what I in terms of the way it actually resonated with me.
Yeah.
But I did connect moments to like now my son's nowhere near the age that Atreus is in the original God of War, but like that arsehole-ish period that he's going through, that's like a 3-year-old temper tantrum. Like I can see that. Okay, how's Kratos dealing with it? Is that what I do? And those sorts of things, and what's like, and you can see like how it wears on Kratos. Not that dissimilar to how it wears on you when you've got a 3-year-old screaming no in your face, not understanding why any of that sort of stuff, just doesn't have that comprehension yet, and he's trying to understand his emotions and all of those sorts of things. Atreus, I think, has a fairly good understanding of his emotions at that age, to an extent, I guess, as much as you can. How old's Atreus meant to be?
I don't know,
10?
like 10, would be my guess.
So you don't have a really good understanding at that point either, but
No.
there's more of I guess there's more control at that point.
Yeah.
And that arrogance that he brings to the table, and that bullshit attitude that you just want to smack the shit out of him. That's my opinions of that phase didn't change, but with that 3-year-old equivalent style thing that's going on now, being something I experience on the daily right now, I could I had an understanding of like where it comes from and how you as the parental role as Kratos is in this case, or the parent, whatever, have to navigate that and how it can wear on you. Like I have a much greater understanding of that, and I really appreciated that, being able to go back and play it. It didn't, it wasn't some big revelatory, oh my god, I completely misunderstood this game, and I'm only getting it differently now that I'm a parent. Like, it's not that. The storytelling was brilliant beforehand, and the way the lines were delivered was exceptional. So I had that understanding anyway, but it's the finer details that I really did pick up on, and that was really, really quite cool. So
no, that's awesome.
That.
Yeah,
It's
like
more
obviously
subtle
I
than
don't.
what I was expecting, but
Like I don't have kids, so when Atreus does his little spat, I'm just pure frustration. I'm just like, you little shit.
No,
Like,
the thing is, like, I'm 100% with you. Like, even now, it's still like, what the fuck is this? Can you just stop? But it's the how you're processing and how you're responding to him. Like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing there, and like what he's trying to do. Whether it doesn't work, obviously we're in this fictitious setting with monsters and all those sorts of things. I don't have to worry about my 3-year-old son trying to stab a god in the neck or anything like that. Thankfully,
well, that's good. That's good to know.
To the best of my knowledge, none of that's going on. He should be sleeping right now. But but like. The behavior though, navigating that behavior that's taking place in front of you is something you still have to deal with, and getting a bit of understanding for how Kratos was doing it was interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how things develop with Ragnarok presumably later in the year, if all reporting is to be believed. September 30 is apparently a date that's kicking around, but we'll see.
All right.
I'll believe when I see it, because that's usually...
I don't believe dates anymore.
That's usually a placeholder date anyway for Q3, so we'll see if that turns out to be legit or not. But I'm really kind of fascinated to see where it goes. Atreus will be a little bit older, because if you recall the ending, and I won't spoil that for people, but the ending, they do drop a few years later, or a couple of years later, that kind of transitions between where you leave off and what they show you at the end there. So Atreus is going to be a little bit older. We're looking at someone who's potentially a teenager at that stage, and I guess
will that reduce the amount of temper tantrums? Hard to say.
Possibly compounds them, but then I guess I'll be bringing a teacher's perspective to that one, because I teach teenagers all the time, so I'm not getting a break, am I?
Nah, it's just all coming for you.
Yeah.
Too much self-reflection.
Yeah, I don't know if I can shut myself off properly for it, but anyway, the gameplay experience, how's that feeling for you in terms of the combat and the world itself and everything there is to explore and do, all that sort of thing? Does that still feel good all these years on?
Yeah, still feels good, still feels smooth. Still, I mean, it's one of those things where there's a lot there that you can go back and, be really kind of nitpicky with it, but you don't really lose that much by just sticking to the original story. Like there are side quests, and I found that the first time I played it, I was not that interested in kind of persevering with those side quests, partly because there was a difficulty curve, it felt, in how difficult they were compared to the main storyline.
Well, things like the Valkyrie, for example, are
yes,
brutal.
exactly, like the Valkyrie. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. Like it. The reason I want to do the quests is not necessarily for quest reasons, I guess, not because I'm that invested in them, but because I want to see more of the world, because it's just such a beautiful world that they have built.
Yeah.
And I think because the campaign is relatively short and the combat is so like fast paced and constantly engaging, I was happy to kind of this time more than last time put in a little bit extra time to go and explore and kind of get more out of the broader world.
Yeah, right.
There was one section kind of near the end where I was like, this is dragging. Like I want this to end this fight scene. That just kind of goes on. I'm trying to think of how to tell it to you without being
Are you taking on two people at once?
No, it's lots. And you're trying to keep fires going.
Oh yeah, okay, right. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
I'm with you.
And yeah, that was kind of the only bit where I was like, okay, are we done with this?
Boat.
Like this is yes, on the boat.
Yeah, that was a bit prolonged.
Yeah. But otherwise it feels tight. Like it still just feels so tight. I don't play a lot of particularly like action focused, slash 'em up kind of games, which this sort of goes into the territory of.
Yeah,
but
it's the old character action game.
yeah. But in this case, I think maybe because of the narrative being so, engaging and powerful and everything feels so intentional. And the pacing just feels so good. And that includes the combat.
Yeah. See, I'd suggest if you are really quite taken by the world itself. So for my experience, so I obviously already finished the game on PS4 and then replayed it again. And so I started up a new game and just blitzed through it. I critical path the whole thing initially. Then I reloaded my old save from 2018 because I'd finished far more stuff at that point in terms of some of the extra bits and pieces. I'd made my mind up. Okay, this time around I'm going to get the platinum.
Yeah,
and went on to do that.
But weird for you.
Yeah, look, it's one of 6 in a row.
Well,
but anyway,
not to brag.
It was actually, so some of those things we referenced the Valkyrie.
Yeah.
I'd almost suggest for you if some of the combat and some of the difficulty stuff's a bit of a concern, even just dial that one right back because you can still adjust the difficulty at any given point. Toggle it down to the easiest, and things like the Valkyrie in particular. There's a lot that actually gets shared as you take out the final one. I won't outline real specifics for anyone. That actually tells quite a lot about that dynamic and what was going on there. And I can see how that may really, I mean, not knowing what they're going to tell in Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I could see that potentially being an important thread if you have that bit of knowledge as well.
Interesting.
So it might be worthwhile just, and look, that's 100% how I play. Like I played the main campaign at the normal difficulty, and then I jumped across to my old game because my completion was higher. Dropped the difficulty for all the side stuff. Tried the Valkyrie at the normal difficulty for a while there. Beat a few of them, and then cracked the shits and toggled them down to easy as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a Souls player, and those particular fights definitely play like Souls games.
Oh, for sure.
And actually, there was some really valuable little nuggets there that I think will actually be quite important in the end. And also just sailing around on the boat and hearing Mimir's stories as well.
Yeah.
Like they're always
fun. Yeah.
I don't know about you when you played the game initially or even this time, but like if he was midway through a story and I was getting to a point to dock, I would just sit and wait for the story to finish before doing it. So I was completely oblivious until the initial reviews came out about how people were so impressed that if you parked, docked your boat, docked your boat, and Mimir was part way through a story, they'd be like, oh, that's all right, I'll stop and I'll tell you later, and then you jump back in the boat and he resumes it. I never knew that because I would always stop, wait for the story to play out, and then jump off.
Oh, that's one of the best bits. He's so good at where he picks up the story. Like it's amazing.
But I didn't have that the first time around, and actually got to thoroughly enjoy that this time because I was just critical pathing everything. I feel like he was cracking the shits at me with how no, I don't care about your stories. I'm going here.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, one thing that I noticed this time that I feel like this game did particularly well, and it's such a little thing, but the way the waypoint in this particular game like switches to take you directly to where you need to go. Like, it's not just your objective is in this vague direction. Yeah. It's like you need to go zigzag up
left
this
here,
thing of
right
stairs.
here,
So yeah.
yeah.
And it's been so long since I've played a game that has done it so well that it was just like this nice little refreshing thing that I just deeply appreciated. It's the little things.
Really, it's a GPS sort of system where it's, turn left here and turn right here, and I don't understand why other games don't. Look, there's obviously some that do, but why not everyone does that? Like, it should just be. It shouldn't be this point in the distance and just get there however you want. And I guess I guess despite there being an open world component to this, there is still a lot of linear sort of pathways. Yeah. Like if you want to get from point A to point B in this region, you will have to go down this predetermined path. But I don't know. I don't understand how other games still can't do that as well. So
no, I don't know. I guess it's because maybe before this I was playing Assassin. Like I went back and started playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla again, which was a weird transition going from the like Viking Norse stuff of Valhalla to back to this.
This Viking setting.
Yeah. But that's so very like, oh, you'll just jump over the top of everything to get to where you're going. Yeah. So maybe that's the assumption, but I like this much better.
Yeah, it's cleaner, it's easier. It's certainly more straightforward if you need it. But any other thoughts about God of War 2018 on the PC, or just even replaying it all these years on?
Look, I a lot of my feelings are still the same. I'm really, really excited that it's going to come to PC, and so a lot more people are going to be able to play it, because I think it's a really important and really well-told narrative that I think, should be kind of widely consumed, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yep. Experienced, probably a better word for it. The port is good. My computer couldn't handle it at the highest settings, but even at not the highest settings it was beautiful, and I highly recommend anybody that hasn't been able to play it beforehand to pick it up now, even if it's not the sort of game that you think you're going to enjoy. I think it surprises you. I enjoyed it so much more than I expected to, and it's still a very, very relevant, I think, story to be told.
Yeah, for sure. No, I completely agree with that. Sony fanboy had taken off for a second.
Yes. Well, obviously, aside from the fact that everything they do is excellent.
Well, yes, yeah, okay. There's that. But if we can check that at the door, yeah, you're right.
Yes,
the story itself does really hold up. It's a powerful narrative that will resonate with people regardless of where they're at in their lives, who they are, what their experiences have been. I think like we've all been someone's son or daughter at some point. Not everyone's necessarily been the parent, but you've potentially had to play that role at some point. Even if it's just looking after a niece or a nephew or something like that. Like you've all probably had to do that. It's supervising someone else's kids while someone goes to the toilet, whatever it happens to be. Like we've all probably had to experience something along these lines at the past, and we've seen variants of these little challenges along the way. No Norse gods, thankfully.
No, not for me personally.
But who knows?
Can't rule it out. Well, of course.
The world is in a bad place right now. Ragnarok could be coming for us too.
Ragnarok could absolutely be around the corner. But it's not even just that though. It's how they relate to other people as well. Because like they relate to character name redacted and yes, Brock and Sindri and their kind of family dynamics, and then my favorite character name redacted. Yes,
the stranger.
Yes,
all those sort of characters.
Yeah, and I think it does tell the story of a bunch of different kinds of family dynamics, but also, I guess there are threads of like, you don't know what everybody else's story is, and everybody has their own experiences and their own different trials, and there are some cool themes. Yeah, but obviously the biggest one is the parental
thing. Yeah. But again, I think regardless of where you've been necessarily in life, you've got some perspective to bring to that. So, and again, regardless, I think, of where you've been at your life, Atreus is absolutely an arsehole in that segment and deserves to get the shit slapped out of him. So
yeah, he's such a little shit.
Can confirm as a parent now that he still deserves a smack.
God, he just did this
Will I do that to
180.
my own kids? No.
No.
I'm better than that. The internet, you've got nothing to hold over me here.
No.
But Kratos, you could send him into the next realm if you like.
I want to tell him that I'm disappointed. Like, I want to just be like, I'm not even angry at you, Atreus. Like, I'm disappointed on behalf of your mum, who would also definitely be disappointed in you. Like, that's the feeling I have towards his little tantrum.
Yeah.
And I hope
it's weird. We describe it like it's just the most arrogant.
Yeah.
Arrogant and self. Like, oh my god, I can do. Oh damn it. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah.
I am this. I am so good. I can do anything now. You can't touch me. And then he gets a horrible reality check. Thankfully, within an hour.
That's not a spoiler though. Yeah. He's Kratos' son.
Yeah, sorry. Good point. He's
Yeah.
Kratos' son. So
yeah,
okay, we can get away with that.
Yeah.
We won't speak any further though, because then I will put my foot in it. Something horrible.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not a spoiler. Phew.
No. But yeah. But yeah, no. It's just this complete turn of like, oh well, guess I'm too good to be a nice person now. Like, no. You little shit, listen here.
You're going to find someone bigger that's going to come along and they're going to smack you out. Don't
Don't, honestly. It's... Oh, I'm just so mad at him. I'm so mad.
It's pretty shit.
But he comes around.
But I guess maybe for me, like, that one little thing is, like, before it seemed really jarring when it happened. Like, oh, he's just suddenly become an arrogant shithead. And like, though I could see why it was a very hard turn.
Yeah.
And again, my eldest is not 10 or whatever but he's even less mature at that point.
Yeah,
he's only just starting to understand, some of these emotions that he's got, and yet, like, I understand it with him, and you still have to wrestle with that in different ways. Atreus is unacceptable regardless.
Yes.
You know enough. You don't know everything, but you know enough to know you're being a dickhead, and you need to stop.
Yeah, I agree.
I should have just let one of the gods kick his ass for a little bit. Anyway,
yeah, I know.
I think that's where we'll wrap things up. As we mentioned, the game is out this week on PC, so please, if you've liked what we've had to say about the game, or you've just been keen on God of War for a long time but never had the opportunity, it's now coming to a platform that is fairly unanimous for a lot of people, so you've got a whole new opportunity to pick the game up there. Please consider to do so. And then, of course, as we mentioned before, it's probably a bit of a promo for Ragnarok later in the year, but
yeah, so what?
Maybe you'll be tempted into getting a PS5. Sony wins at that point.
Yeah.
Jess, thank you for sharing all your thoughts on the game and playing it. I'm sure I make it sound like it was such a task that you had to do, but getting to play one of the greats.
Yeah, I know. Such a struggle. It's fine. Anytime I will suffer through amazing games. Anytime you need.
We'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for watching and listening. If you want to catch up with all things Player 2, make sure to visit the website player2.net.au. You can catch ourselves on social media. Jess, where can you be found?
I am on Twitter at ZametJess, and that's where you can find most of my stuff.
Paul James Games
on Player 2.
Yeah, at Player 2 itself. The website's Twitter handle at Player2AU. And otherwise, thank you very much everyone for tuning in for this, whether you're on podcast feeds or the YouTube channel. Again, God of War is out on PC this week. We hope you enjoy it. If you've already enjoyed it, we hope you potentially enjoy it again. And we'll see you later.
Bye.